Have you just installed Genshin Impact, but seem, quite frankly, overwhelmed by the amount of numbers on the screen? Or maybe you've been playing for a while now, but still don't understand some things? Let me break it down for you. This video will be split into 5 sections. Characters, leveling, elemental reactions, world exploration. This video might contain spoilers on Genshin Impact, but I will warn you. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Characters. Characters are one of the most important parts of Genshin Impact. Some say it's pay to win, and to be honest, it kind of is. And as you can see, there are quite a few characters. Now these are the characters that I've picked up on my journey in Genshin Impact, and I've not been playing for that long either. I've been playing for about 2 years now, and I definitely got to know this game. But I don't have every single character, as you can see. All characters have different elemental skills and elemental bursts. For example, as you can see down here, my E, or Furina's E, is ready to go. When I press it, 3 of these little crab things pop up. However, if I press Nouvelette's E, also known as the elemental skill, his does something different. So does Sucrose. And so does Charlotte. Every character has their own unique skill. Now, certain characters, like Nouvelette and Furina, because they are 5 stars, which I will get to in a second, when you use their elemental burst, they have animations, such as this. Whereas 4-star characters just tend to place their elemental burst down, and they don't have an animation. Now, if you're not sure whether your character is a 5-star or 4-star, there's a quite simple way of figuring it out. If you press L on your keyboard, I'm not sure what it is for mobile, but if you press L on your keyboard and click on one of your 4 characters, it'll pop up with every single character you own in Genshin Impact. Now, if they have a golden background behind them, they are 5 stars, and if they have a purple background behind them, then they are 4 stars. So, what's the difference? Well, in simple terms, it's kind of like rarity. 5 stars are much more rare than 4 stars. As you can probably tell, I have way more 4 stars than I do 5 stars. Now, how do you get them? Well, this little button up here, or by clicking F3 on a keyboard, will bring you to something known as the wishing menu. Now, what is a wishing menu? Well, it's kind of like praying to the gods to get a character. For example, as you can see, here we have Veressa. She is 5 stars, and she's brilliant. If you want Veressa, you then have to wish. You can either wish once, or wish 10 times. You tend to have to wish between 70 and 80 times to get the 5-star. However, you don't always, as there's a small chance you get them as what we call early, between 0 and 70, is technically classified as an early pull. Pull is just another way of saying, I wished for the character. Now, there are 2 5-star banners. Currently, one is Veressa, and the other is Zhang Yun. These are what we call limited character banners. That means that they will change. In 7 days currently, for me, in 7 days, Veressa will change to a different character. Same thing with Zhang Yun. That means most 5-star characters are really difficult to get, as you have to wait for them to come back to you. There is an exception, however, there is something called the standard banner. Now, you may have noticed, but this requires a different type of fate, which I'll get to in a second. But the standard character banner has a few different characters on it that you can just get straight away from the standard banner without having to wait for them to return on the limited character banner. So, how do I wish? So, on the limited character banners, you need these things called intertwined fates. There are many ways to get them, but the usual way is through Primogems. Now, you get Primogems by basically doing anything. You can get them from completing quests, opening chests, doing the Spiral Abyss, which I will get into later on. Basically anything. Specifically, if you open your quest menu by pressing J, mine will look a little bit different because I've been playing this for a while, but as you can see, there are Archon quests. Archon quests give you Primogems. It doesn't say that right here, but I promise you they give you Primogems. I promise. There are other quests that will give you Primogems, such as story quests, if I can find one. So, when you're in a party of Genshin, obviously I have got some 5 stars here, and I have chosen my characters carefully, because characters fall into one of 3 categories. Main DPS, which stands for main damage per second, or basically the character that will deal most of your damage. Then you have sub DPS. These characters are what we call off-field. So, to elaborate on that, right now, this character, as you can see on the screen, his name is Neuvillette. Neuvillette is on-field because you can currently see him and you are currently playing as him. If you then clicked number 2, Neuvillette is now what we call off-field because I have switched to another character, and now this character, called Farina, she's now on-field. Sub-DPSs work like this. They tend to, not always, but tend to, summon something with their elemental skill or elemental burst, and then you would end up switching back to the main DPS, who has to stay on-field to do all of their damage. Now, in a good party, you would always have one main DPS, in my case that's Neuvillette, and then either 1, 2 sub-DPSs, and then 1 support. Support characters tend to buff other characters by maybe they heal, or maybe they give a shield, or maybe they just make your characters other characters deal more damage. In my case, Charlotte heals all the other characters in the party. The party is just a collective term for all 4 characters in one go. Now, you would either have 1 main DPS, 2 sub-DPSs, and 1 support, or 1 main DPS, 1 sub-DPS, and 2 supports. It doesn't really matter, but it tends to differ based on who your main DPS is. Now that that's been said, if you look next to Neuvillette's name, you will see a little symbol. That's different to the symbol next to Sucrose's name, and it's different to the one next to Charlotte's name. That symbol determines what elemental magic type these characters have. So if I then click on Neuvillette, as you can see, Hydro Neuvillette. That means Neuvillette's elemental type is Hydro. If I click on Sucrose, Sucrose Anemo/Sucrose. That means Sucrose is Anemo. Now, elements have a specific property, because when you merge 2 of them, you have something called elemental reactions. I'll get into those later on. So, just to recap everything I've said about characters, you will have 4 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, in a party. You'll have 1 main DPS, and then either 2 sub-DPSs, or and a support, or 1 sub-DPS and 2 supports. I would tend to arrange them in the order of main DPS, sub-DPS, support, but that depends on what you like. I would normally have my 1 be my main DPS, 2 and 3 be sub-DPS, and then 4 be support. But, as I said, that's down to personal preference, and it genuinely has no effect on whether your characters are good or not. Now, Furthermore, some characters go better together, like Nouvellette and Farina. If you're not entirely sure what characters go well together, this website, known as Game 8, will probably be your best friend. Now, in the Genshin community, Game 8 is a hit or miss. Some people love it to bits, some people hate it. Personally, I think it's really good for beginners because it gives you a full-blown guide to how everything works. For example, main DPSs are in this column here, and they're ranked as well on which characters are the best to which characters are the worst. Now, if you're not entirely sure what this means, they have a full-blown guide on their website of everything you need to know. And they will also, for example, if I switch to Nouvellette, give you a full guide on how to, we call, build or make Nouvellette really, really good at dealing damage, with everything you need to know. Absolutely everything is on this website. But specifically, it gives you examples of teams, also known as parties, that Nouvellette works really well in. So, Nouvellette, Farina, Kazuya, Jilonen. That's an example of 4 characters that work really well together to deal massive amounts of damage. They have, as you can quite clearly see, quite a few examples of parties, and they also give you a little description of why they're good when they're put together. And they can also sometimes give you characters to replace, because a lot of these, like most of the characters on this table here, are 5 stars and they're very difficult to get. So they can sometimes give you 4-star alternatives for the 5-star. And they have these in detail depth guides for pretty much every character in Genshin. Some guides aren't as detailed as others, because for characters that don't really do much, there's no point in making a guide that detailed, but for characters that do a lot, like Nouvellette, they have a very detailed guide that you can look through. So I would personally very much recommend looking at this website if you need it. As you can see with my Kaveh, he's at level 1 out of 20. Now, if you remember from earlier, Nahida was at 80 out of 80, but why is Kaveh out of 20 and Nahida's out of 80? Well, I'll tell you. Once you reach the maximum level, so for example Kaveh is up to 20, you have to do something called ascending. So for Nahida, I got her to 80 out of 80. If I wanted to get her to level 90, which is the maximum level a character can get to, you have to do something called ascending, which is basically where you kill bosses and you collect some random flowers or other things from around the world to ascend the character. All ascending does is increase all of their stats. As you can see, it's going to increase Nahida's HP, defense, ATK, and elemental mastery by quite a bit. And ascending allows you to further increase the character's level. This is very valuable, and you definitely want to be doing this to get your characters better. Now, how do you level a character up? So, in the bottom right corner of your screen, you'll see the button level up. If you click on this, you are presented with this screen. This tells you what level your character is currently at and the stats they have because of their level, and this is what you can use to level characters up. Now, you have Wanderer's Advice, Adventurer's Experience, and Hero's Wit. These are what we call EXP books. Now, I'm not entirely sure why we call them books, because they're like pieces of paper, but anyway, moving on. EXP books you can get from doing many things in Genshin. And to start off with, your primary source of EXP books will be quests, like the Archon quest, or opening chests. But if in the inevitable outcome, once you reach higher levels, such as where I am at, you run out of EXP books, there is one thing you can do. Ley lines. Now, ley lines are sort of like little mini bosses that you can fight to get EXP books. There are 2 different types of ley lines. Number 1 is this blue one that you can see on my minimap up here, right there. The blue one will, once you've killed all the enemies within it, will drop EXP books, which you can use to level up your characters. The other one, which I haven't mentioned yet, is golden, and I cannot seem to find it. Ah, this one. This one will drop Mora. Mora is basically like dollars or pounds or euros from wherever you are, and it's used to level up your characters. If you run out of Mora, you can't level up your characters, and it's quite sad. This is what a ley line looks like. It's like a cloud of gas. The Mora ley line will be golden instead of blue. However, you don't really need to worry about the Mora ley line currently at the start of the game, or any ley lines at all at the start of the game, because you'll tend to just have everything you need handed to you on a silver platter, and you don't tend to run out of resources like that. Now that we've covered leveling characters, finally, see these little stars? This just means how many times you've ascended a character. So if I went all the way back to Carve, he has none of these grayed out. That's just because, he has all of them grayed out because he hasn't been ascended at all. Yes, I know I haven't ascended my Carve, don't come for me. Now, moving on from the attributes to weapons. Weapons are vital to a character. You can switch your weapon by clicking on switch, and you will find weapons in this little menu. Now, for example, Nahida is what we call a catalyst user. Catalyst is sort of like a book that allows Nahida to solely use magic as a weapon. However, if I switch to a different character, this character uses a bow as a weapon. This character uses a sword. This character uses a claymore, and a claymore is just like a fat sword. And finally, if I can find one, there we go. This character uses a polearm. A polearm is just a fancy way of saying spear. So there you go. There are 5 different weapon types. I think it's 5. Catalyst, polearm, sword, claymore, bow. And that's it. So, Nahida is a catalyst, which means she wants a catalyst weapon. You pick whichever catalyst weapon you think will be best on her. If you don't know, you can look on the Game8 website. This is not sponsored by Game8, I just love the Game8 website. And it will give you 2 things. As you can see, grey is 1 star, blue is 3 star, purple is 4 star, and gold would be 5 star, but currently I have no 5 star weapons. I know, sad. Now, in the case of Nahida, Nahida will get base 80k. Now, 80k yet again, it means attack damage. And all weapons give you base 80k. The word base you can be ignored for now, but imagine it just increases your 80k stats, so you will deal more damage. Some weapons, not all as you can see, but most weapons will give you a sub-stat. This means, for example, Nahida's gives elemental mastery. I'll get onto that in a minute. Or this other weapon gives 80k. It's basically another stat that will further make your character even better. Now, weapons can also be ascended. However, they're not actually called, we don't call it ascending, we call it refining. So this would be, oh wait, no, sorry, I lied. This would be ascending a weapon. So ascending a weapon does the exact same thing as ascending a character. However, refining is something different. On a weapon, you see down here, composed. After damaging an opponent with an elemental skill, the skill has a 40% chance to end its own cooldown. It can only occur once every 30 seconds. All that means is it's like a little extra buff the weapon would give Nahida. If you refine it, how do you refine it? Well, that means if you have 2 of the exact same weapon, you can refine it by merging them. And that means that little buff that you saw here will be better. So now it would go from being 40 and 30 to 50 and 26. And you can refine it up to 5 times, I believe. And the more you refine, obviously the better the stats get. Now, we've looked at weapons and we've looked at character leveling. The next thing is, I'm going to skip artifacts for now because it's the most complicated of all of them. But we're going to move on to constellations. So, remember the wishing screen earlier that I showed you? Yeah, this thing. Now, if you wished for, let's say, Varessa. If you wished for Varessa and then got Varessa, yippee, congratulations, you got Varessa. However, there's something else. If you got Varessa again, for some reason, you get something known as a constellation. Now, I don't have any constellations for Nahida, as you can see they're all locked. However, if I got like a duplicate copy of Nahida, instead of getting 2 Nahida characters to play as, I get a Nahida constellation. And Nahida constellations just basically mean that Nahida will be a lot better. So, you can have a go at reading all of the constellations for your characters, because I'm not going to do that because that would take far too long, but have a look and you'll see, and you'll agree with me, that constellations tend to improve characters. There are some rare cases, like Bennett's C6, C just stands for constellation 6, that can make a character worse, but very, very few cases are like that. So yeah, that's constellations. Talents. So, if you haven't done the Archon quest that's right at the start, as soon as you start the game, please, for the love of God, do. I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't done that, but go and do that quest and come back to me when you need this video. Now, just as a quick reminder, left click or tapping on the screen does a normal attack. If you hold down left click, it does a charged attack, consuming some of your stamina. Stamina is pretty self-explanatory. It's how far you can exercise without running out of energy. If you tap E, it will do an elemental skill. Some people, they can hold down their E and it will deal extra damage or do something else. And obviously I can't do it currently, but tapping on Q will allow you to do an elemental burst, which does a lot of damage. There are 3 different types of attacks, as I've shown you: normal, your elemental skill, and your elemental burst. You can level these up so that they do more damage. For example, Nahida's normal attack is currently at level 5, and I can use these things to level her up to level 6. And as you can see, that would mean she would do a little bit more damage. It doesn't seem like a lot, but the comparison of level 1 to level 10 is massive, and Nahida would be doing a lot more damage if I leveled her up. So these 3 are what you get as a standard. The bottom talent is known as a passive, and all characters have a passive talent. For example, I should look at Yao Yao's. Not Yao Yao's. Let's look at Garming's. Garming's passive is during the day, his party members will have their movement speed increased by 10%. So that means that they can run a little bit faster when Garming is in the party. He does not have to be equipped and on field, but he has to be in the party. Now, all characters have a passive talent. Some of them are the same, but a lot of them aren't. And you also get 2 more talents. Now, these two are unlocked with ascensions. This one is unlocked when you get to level 70, and this one is unlocked when I believe you get to level 40, but I could be wrong. When these talents, just yet again, improve the amount of damage that your character is doing. That's all they're used for. Profile is just... Profile doesn't actually have anything to do with the character. You can just listen to what the character might say or do at any point in the story. And finally, artifacts. The dreaded artifacts. Now, this part of the video is probably the most important as it takes a while to learn. So I'm going to break it down for you into a few steps. Step 1. As you can see, there are 5 different artifacts. We call this the flower, the feather, the sands because it looks like an hourglass, the goblet because it looks like a goblet, and the circlet. If you're not sure which one it is, it'll say right here underneath the big name of the thing. Circlet, goblet, sands, plume. It does say plume, but plume's just another way of saying feather. We just call it the feather because it's easier. Now, as I've said, there are 5 different types of artifacts. If you click on any artifact, as you will see, the flower, no matter which flower you pick on, because as you can see, some of these look a little bit different to others, the main stat, which we call, is the one that's highlighted in white here. The main stat for flowers is always HP. No matter what flower you have, your main stat for a flower will be HP. That is also mirrored by your feather. No matter what feather you have, the main stat for feather is 80k. Now, sands, goblets, and circlets are a little bit different, and I'll get onto those later. If you see, underneath the main stat, you have 4, sometimes 3, and sometimes 2, depending on what rarity, and sometimes 1, you have sub-stats. That means that these are other stats or statistics that will affect your character. So, what are these stats? Well, there's quite a few of them, but I promise you, they're all quite easy to get your head around. HP, health, 80k, attack damage. Now, Elemental Mastery, as I told you earlier on, Elemental Mastery does this. Elemental Reactions, which is the next part of the video, and I will get onto that in a second. Elemental Reactions, if you have more Elemental Mastery, these reactions will do more damage. Simple as that. If you want to check how buffed that damage will be, you can go from the attribute screen to details and then click on the question mark, and it will show you how much this character's reactions will be buffed by. Now, what else is there? Well, there are max stamina cannot be affected, don't worry, max stamina will stay the same. Now there are things called crit rate and crit damage. If you played a game before, you should know what a crit hit is. If you don't, it's fine, let me explain it to you. A crit hit is basically when you hit a character and deal damage, you have a small chance to basically deal like a powerful blow, and that will deal more damage. A crit rate is it's a percentage, so out of 100, what percentage of all of your hits will be crits? You do 1 crits, they do more damage, it's good. Crit damage means, because Naminehida's is 78, when she lands a crit hit, she will deal 78% extra damage. 78 isn't actually that good. I have other characters with much higher, bad example, but I have other characters with much higher crit damage, like Farina, sorry, 115. So like I said, crit rate and crit damage are incredibly important. For some characters, crit rate and crit damage are the best stats you can ask for others, they're not so much. Healing bonus is basically, like I said for Charlotte, some characters can heal other characters, and if you have a healing bonus, it plain and simple means that they will do more healing. Energy recharge. Now, as it's going to get explained to you in the very start of the game, as you can see, my queue has sort of like a little build-up thing. The green line stops here, whereas the purple line stops here. There's no purple line on this one, and there's a green line a little bit down on this one. That is what we call the queue being, the elemental burst being charged up. How do you get it to charge up? Literally, all you do is fight. But how can you get it to charge up faster so you can do more damage? That's where energy recharge comes in. The more energy recharge you have, the faster that will build up. Simple. Shield strength. Some characters apply shields, and so if you have shield strength as a buffer, their shield will be able to absorb more damage rather than it going to your health. There are also the element damage bonus, and that means that, say for an example, Nahida, she does dendro damage. I have a Nahida 15% dendro damage bonus. She will do 15% more damage when it's dendro related. Some attacks with swords, say Kuki Shinobu's, it's just a sword and it does normal damage. That's white, so it doesn't actually do anything special. It's just like stabbing someone with a sword. There's no magic involved in there at all. So that won't be affected at all by this dendro damage bonus. So yeah, those are what we call the stats, and I believe I have covered all of them, or all of the important ones. Oh, there's also defense, but defense in 99% of characters, defense does absolutely nothing, and it's the worst stat you could ever ask for. You do not want defense. So, like I said earlier, there's something special about the circlet, the goblet, and the sands. They are only able to have a certain main stat. For example, the sands cannot have... Well, the sands can have everything, right? The sands can have anything you want, but the goblet cannot. The goblet can't have... Wait a minute. Anyway, some of these three are all... They can have anything. For example, this one's HP, this one's ATK, this one's crit damage, this one's crit damage also, ATK, HP, healing bonus. So, go on to Game A and figure out what main stat for your circlet, goblet, and sands your character will want. Because I promise you, if you get the main stat your character wants, it will massively influence your damage. And finally, the last thing you need to know about artifacts is, see how they look a little bit different. This one looks very different to that one. That's because they're part of different artifact sets. It's like a family. Artifacts have little families, and if you have enough members of the family, they will give you little buffs. So for example, this specific artifact family or artifact set is called Deepwood Memories. And if out of the 5 that you can have, if 2 of them are from Deepwood Memories, you get a dendro damage bonus of 15%. And if 4 of the 5 are from Deepwood Memories, you get this 4-piece set buff. It's different for every single artifact set, and some of them are better for some characters than others. So yeah, that's all you need to know about artifacts. Artifacts can also be leveled up. From if it's a 3-star artifact, it can go up to 12, 4 stars up to 16, and 5-star is up to 20. You get these artifacts from chests. You can get 3-star artifacts from chests, and very rarely 4-star artifacts from chests. But if you want 4 stars or 5 stars of a specific type, you have to go to these things called domains. Domains are like dungeons that you get artifacts from by killing things and then claiming the rewards from the tree. You'll see what I mean when you get into them, and I'll show you later on when we do world exploration. So yeah, that's everything you need to know about artifacts. When you level them up, you can also increase the substats, and that's kind of where artifacts get into the problem, because they tend to go towards defense. They don't always, but it just it seems that they go into defense quite a lot, and you don't want defense. You want, when you level it up at an interval of 4, I think it's when you get it to 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20, one of your 4 substats will be increased, and they tend to land on defense, and you don't want defense. So as a recap, for artifacts, 5 different artifacts: flower, feather, sands, goblet, and circlet. Flower is HP, feather is attack, and these 3 are anything. You have artifact sets or families, and these give you little bonuses, and artifacts can be leveled up depending on what you do. Warning: artifact grinding is when you go into domains just to get the artifacts that you need. Do not artifact grind until you are AR45, Adventurer's rank. You can see what AR you are by going into the menu. Once you get to 45, you can do a level of domain which guarantees you a 5-star, so please do not try and artifact grind before AR45, as there is no point. Your characters do not need them at that point. Okay, welcome to the elemental reactions portion of the video. Now, I did have to rope in my friend to help me showcase this, but when you have two elements on a character, it can cause a reaction. So you might have just seen there, but within the mix of all these numbers on the screen, you might see words like overloaded, burning, melt, those are reactions, and these happen when you combine two elements. These happen when you combine these two elements on on something that you're trying to kill. Now, there are specific reactions, and some of them are much more powerful than others. But overall, elemental reactions are one of the most important factors in damage dealing for any game. Any game? Any team, sorry. So, I'm applying Dendro, and I am applying Electro, and I get the reactions Super Conduit and Quicken. That's what happens when you combine Dendro and Electro. For example, if you combine Cryo and Pyro, you get Melt, hence the name. Because, you know, it's like ice melting, if you get the point. So, let me teach you all about elemental reactions. So now that you've just seen what elemental reactions look like when you're fighting something, let me show you how it works. So, when you go back into this party menu by clicking L, here are 4 of my characters that I have right now. If you look at something, if you can't figure out what elemental reaction something might do, just Google, and there's also Game 8, but it's kind of self-explanatory. Like, if you merge Cryo and Pyro, you put ice on something, and then you light it on fire, the ice will melt, so the reaction's called Melt. If you apply Hydro, water, and then Electro, electricity, you get electro-charged. You know, because, like, the water gets charged with electricity. Now, one of the best reactions in the game is known as Hyper Bloom, and you get this by combining Dendro with Electro, hence why I'm having a Hyper Bloom party currently. Now, you may have noticed earlier in the fight, with Dendro characters, they can spawn these things called Dendro cores. I'll show you an image right now. Dendro cores are like little bombs of plants, and if you apply another element to it, in our case for Hyper Bloom it's Electro. If you apply an Electro to the Dendro core, it will explode and deal massive amounts of damage to the character you're trying to kill. The only problem with Hyper Bloom is it does also deal a little bit of damage to your character if you're stood next to the bloom when it explodes. So you do tend to need a healer in Hyper Bloom parties. Hyper Bloom parties need lots of Elemental Mastery, as Elemental Mastery increases the damage you get from Hyper Bloom, in my case by 200%. So you know, it's very useful Elemental Mastery in some cases. There are lots of elemental reactions, but one of the best things is Elemental Resonance. Because I have 2 Dendro characters, Nahida and Yao Yao, because I have 2 of them in the same party, I get something called Elemental Resonance, which activates when you have 2 or more of the same element in a party. If you don't, you get something called Protective Canopy, which means elemental resistance is increased and so is physical resistance. But because I have 2 Electro characters, for example, I'm affected for Hydro for 40% less time, and all of these Electro-related reactions have a 100% chance to generate an Electro element particle. An elemental particle is what allows your burst to charge, and it can be, it can be sped up with energy recharge. Each one of these elemental resonances has their own effect, and they're all incredibly useful and powerful. That's why quite a lot of the time, say even in my Nouvellette one, I have 2 Hydro, so they get the Hydro resonance of this, increases my max HP by 25%. So it all adds up. Elemental reactions are incredible, and you definitely want to be doing them in game. Some characters can apply an element really quickly. For example, Nahida, she's able to apply Dendro to a character really quickly, whereas Yao Yao is less so. Yao Yao is my healer in this team. Kuki Shinobu is able to apply Electro really quickly, hence creating the Hyper Bloom reaction. and increasing your total damage output. So as a reminder, elemental reactions are when you merge two elements on the field, and this causes a reaction. For example, Cryo and Pyro makes Melt, Dendro and Electro makes Hyperbloom, and these deal massive amounts of damage. The final chapter of this video, because this video is getting quite long, I'm going to skip out on the lore one and let you figure this out yourself. However, because there's not much to learn about lore, I'm just going to go through it. But if you really want me to make a lore video, drop a comment below in the comment section and let me know. Now, world exploration. This is the final section of this video, and where better to look than the Genshin Impact map. So, I'm going to keep this pretty locked to this section, because I'm assuming most, if not all of you, will have fully explored Mondstadt, or at least partially explored Mondstadt. So this area is known as Mondstadt, and this is the map. How do you get to the map? Press M. Pretty self-explanatory. So, you start down here, and you make your way. This is a teleport waypoint. This allows you to, from any location, see this little blue thing here? That's me. Any location on the map, I can teleport to you whenever I want. Click on the teleport, bam, I'll teleport over there. This thing is the Statue of the Seven. If you've done the quest at the start of the game, you'll know what a Statue of the Seven is, and you'll know this one is to the animo god Barbatos. These little symbols are bosses, and these bosses drop things that can be used for character ascensions, weapon ascensions, or sometimes even artifacts. In the case of the Cryo, just find it drops these two. And finally on the map you have these. These are domains, and domains are where you get good artifact sets from. For example, the Viridescent Venera is one of the best sets for animo characters, and it probably is the best one. So, finally, on a map, you have quite a few things. If you scroll in, it'll reveal a lot more icons. For example, there's the church in Mondstadt, there's the Nets of Favonius, there's this thing, which is, I believe that was an event ages ago. There's fishing spots. Now, I believe you unlock fishing at AR 30, but fishing is a whole system in itself, and I can make a video if you guys want. Yet again, drop a comment down below in the comment section. The most important things in any place in cities are, number one, the crafting table. But like Minecraft, really. And you can craft things. So, remember how I told you that there's different rarities of objects? Let's say slime secretions. This is what you get from killing slimes. If I needed some of these blue ones, but I didn't have any of the blue ones, and I had loads of the green ones, I can craft the blue ones from the green ones. So it's sort of like merging a few of the lower rarity ones to get a higher rarity one. The crafting table bench thing is absolutely insane, and it's so useful. In the crafting table, I'm going to call it crafting table from now on, but in the crafting table, you can merge pretty much anything to make a better version of itself, but you can also do something called Artifact Strongbox. This won't be relevant to you until you get to AR 45, but for those people who are at AR 45, quick little summary of what it is if you're looking for an artifact set, warning, not all of them are here. I believe it's Fontaine and before. Artifacts found within those regions, they're in these strong boxes, but not the Natland ones yet. All of these, if you're looking for a specific one, say the Noblesse Oblige, if you need a Noblesse Oblige, but you keep getting really bad stats on it, you can merge 3 of any 5-star artifact. Yes, I know it looks like I don't have very many, but it doesn't show ones that your characters have got equipped. You can merge 3 of any 5-star artifact to get 1 artifact of that set. And it's quite useful if you keep getting rubbish artifacts that you do not need. What else is there to offer within the cities? Well, there's little shops that you can buy food from. Food allows you to revive characters, heal them, and buff their damage and defense. There's also this weird little shop that you get from Animo Sigils. Animo Sigils you get from opening chests and other exploration things within Mondstadt, most of which will be chests. However, there are things called Sealies, which you'll see around. They're like little floating creatures that you guide back to their home, and they give you Animo Sigils for it. But probably the most important place in any city is the Adventurers Guild. Now, the Adventurers Guild is where you can claim your daily commissions. You have to be AR 12 for daily commissions. And daily commissions give you AR rank XP, so you can level up your adventurer rank quite quickly. They also give you Primogems, and they can give you a few other things. And this is where you'll claim those extra rewards from at the Adventurers Guild. You can also claim rewards for leveling up your AR. For example, when I get to AR 55, I will get all of this as a reward. And when I was at AR 53, I got this, 52 was this, 4 was this, you know, it's pretty much the same for all the way around. But you get rewards every time you level up in your AR. So, anything else in the city? Absolutely. The only other thing I believe that's worth mentioning is the blacksmith. The blacksmith can forge some 4-star weapons. Not all, but some he can forge. So for example, for me, he can forge the prototype archaic, he can forge the white blind, and some of these are really, really useful for some characters, like the Kitane cross spear. I have one, and I'm using it on, I believe I'm using it on Yao Yao. But some of these 4-star weapons that you can forge in the blacksmith are incredibly useful and incredibly powerful. So that's everything you need to know about the cities. There tends to be one major city, well there is one major city per region. To start off with, you go to the region of Mondstadt. Mondstadt's kind of a little bit confusing because the entire area, all of this, the entire map that you can see right now is within Mondstadt, but the city of Mondstadt is also within Mondstadt. It's a little bit confusing, but imagine it like a country. The country is called Mondstadt, and the country's capital is also called Mondstadt. There are lots of other places, and I'm warning you, this is going to be a bit of a spoiler. I'm going to show you the map, which you won't be able to see if you haven't unlocked the Statue of the Sevens for other regions. So I'm warning you now, if you don't want to see this, skip past this part of the video. If you do want to see this, let's continue. If you go down here, you'll meet Liyue, and this entire section here is Liyue. This is the second area you go to. The third area you go to is Inazuma, and Inazuma is all of this. Inazuma is lots of little islands. That's the third area you go to. The fourth area is this, and Sumeru is massive. As you can see, I haven't even fully explored Sumeru yet. But there you go, there's Sumeru. The fifth area is Fontaine over here, and the sixth area is Natlan. I have fully explored Natlan pretty much. Well, I'm quite a little way there, you know, exploration progress. Every time you open up a chest within an area, so for example, this little area is called Leisha, and when you open a chest in there, it will give you a little bit of Primogems, and it will also increase your exploration progress. So, you know, pretty useful. But I've been banging on about these Primogems the entire time, and yes, I showed you how to wish, but how does the wishing system actually work? Now, this is kind of complicated to understand at first, but I promise you, once you wrap your head around it, it makes your life so much easier, so it is worth trying to understand. When you go into this little wish system here, you have history, and with the history, it shows you what you recently got from wishing. You can count how many wishes. So this is one wish, this is another wish, this is the third wish, fourth, fifth. You can count how many wishes you have spent. So this would be your 10th wish, and we would call that a pity of 10. And pity is how many wishes you've had since your previous 5-star. If you've never gotten a 5-star, it's how many wishes you've done in total. I'm on a pity right now, about 42-ish. Which means I'm quite close to getting another 5-star. Now, how many do you need to be on? Once you get to a pity of 70, the chances of you getting a 5-star dramatically increase. And I don't mean by like another 0.5%, I mean if you get up to 80, there's like a 85% chance or something stupid like that you're going to get your 5-star before a pity of 80, between 70 and 80. Getting a pity of higher than 80 is rather rare, and it pretty much never happens. I've never seen it happen personally. So you want to be wishing a lot to get your 5 stars up to about 70. You can also wish on a weapon banner with the same type of wish as these limited ones, and these have a little bit of a different pity thing, but I'll get into that in a second. Pity works like this. Remember how I told you this banner has standard 5 stars? Well, you can still get standard 5 stars from this banner. It's what we call a 50-50. 50% chance you get a Varessa in this case, and 50% chance you get one of these standard 5-star characters. Now, if you fail your 50-50, and failing a 50-50 means you got a standard character instead of the limited character, the next time you wish, you are guaranteed to get the 5-star you want. Not the next time you wish, but the next time you will get a 5-star. You're guaranteed to get the one that you want instead of just a random 5-star. There's also a thing called Capturing Radiance, but Capturing Radiance is rather confusing to get into. So I won't get into it in today's video. I can do another video on it if you guys want, or go and watch somebody else's YouTube video on it. But yeah, Capturing Radiance is pretty damn cool, and it increases our odds of getting it from 50 to 55%, sort of. It's a little confusing. Moving on from Capturing Radiance. If you get a 3-star weapon, a 4-star weapon, or if you get anything from a banner, you get something called Star Glitter. Now, Stardust, sorry. Stardust you get from anything, and you get a little bit of it. In the Paimon's shop, you can spend Stardust to get 5 fates a month. I've already bought them, so I can't get any more, but you can get 5 intertwined fates every month by purchasing it with Stardust. Star Glitter, you can purchase other things, such as some characters, 4 stars, some 4-star weapons, and also, I don't know why you would do this, but you can also purchase some of these weapons, ascension materials. I personally would only ever use it on some weapons, some characters, and intertwined fates. You should never spend Star Glitter on Acquaint Fates or Stardust on Acquaint Fates. Never. And then obviously you can purchase Fates with Primogems as well. So yeah, that's my guide to wishing. Oh, but also, there are some 4-star characters on the side of a banner, and these 4-star characters basically, if you get a 4-star character every 10 wishes, and if you are going to get a 4-star, you have a slightly higher chance of getting one of these 3 rather than just a random 4-star character. But you will always get a random 4-star character on this banner. The weapon banner is a little bit different for Pity. If memory serves me correctly, you have a 50% chance of getting one of these 2 weapons. So these 2 are what we call the signature weapons for these 2 characters. You have a 50% chance of getting one of these 2 weapons, and then a 25% chance, obviously, of getting the weapon for your character. And the rest of the 50% chance goes into getting just another 5-star weapon. If you don't get the weapon that you wanted, we have something called a fate point. And fate point basically means if you got the wrong weapon, it's a bit like a 50-50. If you got the wrong weapon, you then pick which weapon you want to get from the weapons banner, and you're guaranteed of getting it. Instead of just getting a random weapon, you're guaranteed to get the weapon you wanted. So yeah, that's wishing, and that's pretty much everything you should know about you need to know about Genshin. I'll probably make a version 2 with some little, instead of doing massive categories, some little tips and tricks, like the Paimon's Bargain Shop. And also, soon I'm going to release a video on a deep guide into the Spiral Abyss. If you don't know what the Spiral Abyss is yet, you've probably not gotten to it, so it probably isn't relevant to you. But yeah, good luck on all of your 50-50 pulls. I hope you get all the 50-50s you can ever dream of, and you succeed and don't fail. I hope you get the limited character that you're saving up for, and I wish you well in your Genshin adventures. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.